Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of the J&J Sports Express for Week 16 of the NFL season 2024. I mean, it's going so fast. You blink your eyes and it's almost over. And hey, as usual, I'm your host, Jeff. I was going to say J.B. Ellis, Jeff Cadillac, with my co-host J.B. Ellis. J.B., how you doing tonight?
Doing good. See, everybody wants to be a little JB Ellis. I love it.
Yeah, I know. It's like we all want to be you.
It's what I hear. It's all right because since everyone wants to be like me, I do a new daily dose of JB, so you can have a daily dose of me every day.
Yeah, and you
A
do
little minute
cameo, I
clip.
hear too.
I should. I mean, I'd sell out. I'd be making videos all day.
Yeah, we should do this. We should. Hey, we'll be appearing at parties. We'll do a cameo video to you, a special message for you for hopefully all the people that are watching this show.
There
So,
you go.
got some good games going. You got two games on Saturday, but let's start off Thursday night. Big game, Denver at the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are favored in this game, -3. Who you like in this game, JB?
It's an interesting game. The Chargers just got destroyed by Tampa Bay. And I don't think Harbaugh or Herbert are going to be very happy with this at all. They're not that bad of a team, and Tampa Bay is not that good of a team. So, I think they're figuring out what went wrong and where it all broke down because they were up 17-10 at one point. Meanwhile, the Broncos, on the other hand, they're still plodding along. They're not great. They're not bad. They're way better than anyone expected this year. But when it's all said and done, I'm going to go with Herbert and Harbaugh at the double H's here to lead them to a victory. I think it's going to be a touchdown. It's going to be a close game. It's going to come down to a drive late in the fourth quarter. Someone's going to either turn it over or score a touchdown, and the Chargers are going to end up winning and covering.
Yeah, well, I hate to disagree with you on this one, but I'm going to anyway. And I don't like the Chargers. I think they're a big faker team. They haven't beat anybody that I have to tell you, they haven't beat anybody impressive. Anybody that they've played against, they've always lost. I knew they were going to lose against Tampa Bay because, first of all, Tampa Bay at least beat Philly and Detroit, two of the top teams in the NFC. Who have the Chargers beat? Nobody. They lose to everybody. They lost to Baltimore. They lost to Pittsburgh. They lose to good teams. They have a lot of talent, but the talent disappears. Their defense is rated like number 9th in the NFL, but it's against teams that they should be beating, but it's the good teams that they can't beat, and that's the problem with the Chargers. They disappear. Last week against Tampa Bay, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, they had no sacks. And Baker Mayfield had his way with that defense. I mean, he was throwing passes that it was incredible. They were up 17-10. They were up 17-13. But guess what? The Tampa Bay defense held them to 0 points in the second half. And they just ran away with it. I'm not impressed with the Chargers right now. Plus, again, and I can't stress this enough, without J.K. Dobbins, the running game for the Chargers is definitely taking a back seat. Gus Edwards is not the same guy as J.K. Dobbins. They are different styled running backs. It puts a lot more pressure on Justin Herbert, who already plays like he has a lot of pressure on him in the first place. The Broncos last week, look, honestly, they got a lot of gifts in that game against Indianapolis, but they took advantage of it. They made the plays that needed to be made. Yes, Jonathan Taylor dropped the ball before the end zone. He's a veteran running back, should have never done that. He knows it's on him, but that was another major point in that game against Indianapolis. Then they try to come out with that trick play, and Bonito, defensive back, intercepts the ball, runs it for a touchdown. Anthony Richardson, please, he's not a good quarterback. He's not an NFL quarterback. He should be playing in like the CFL where they like that kind of quarterback. He's a runner first, passer second. I don't like him at all. I don't know why Indianapolis picked him. I don't know who the scouts are over there. They should be all fired because now they're stuck with him for a minimum of 4 years. And he passes for under 50%, which is unacceptable in the NFL. I love the Broncos in this game. I think the defense is going to step up. Plus, this is a revenge game. Chargers played at the Broncos earlier in the season. Chargers won the game. Bo Nix didn't have a good game. This is something that the Broncos are probably thinking. Sean Payton is big in the revenge game. He knows exactly what he needs to do to beat the Chargers this time around. You're going to see the Broncos win by at least 7 points in this game. I do not like the Chargers. I think they're a faker of a team. I take the Broncos +3. They're going to win outright by 7 on Thursday night.
Interesting. So we disagree. Let's move on to Kansas City. Got the
Okay.
Texans going against the Chiefs Saturday afternoon. You want to
The
start?
Texans, I'll tell you something. The Texans, first of all, are another team that has regressed. C.J. Stroud, definitely. One of the reasons why Houston is not looking as good as they did last year is because they have a tougher schedule. I mean, you play better as a team. All of a sudden, you have a winning record. You're going to have a tougher schedule the next year. But the Texans have not adapted to that schedule. They barely beat Miami last week. Miami had 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions by Tua, and a lost fumble, and they still only beat them by 8 points. I mean, what is going on? I mean, Mixon is having a great year with Houston, and C.J. Stroud is just looking average. And that's the problem with the Texans. The Texans also, their defense, big deal. They beat Miami. Miami's a faker too. They shouldn't even, being in the playoff hunt, and everybody's thinking, yeah, they're going to win games. And they can't win in the cold. They can't win against a good team. That team has got – I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Daniels is not the coach come next season for Miami because the message is not getting done. But the Texans barely beat Miami last week because if you look at the stats, C.J. Stroud threw for 100 yards. Texans rushed for like 70 yards. They should have been beat like 40-10, but they won because of all the turnovers. The Chiefs, come on, Kansas City, we all know Pat Mahomes. He injured his leg, high ankle sprain as of right now, Wednesday. He's scheduled to play, believe it or not. And everybody rallies around him. But Carson Wentz is no slouch, okay? Every time he does go in and he plays spot plays because he is a backup, he plays very well. So don't think for a minute that if the Kansas City Chiefs are without Pat Mahomes, Carson Wentz is going to fall flat on his face. He's been there before. He's looking to prove himself. He wants to still play. He stays in tip-top shape. One of the things also for the Chiefs, Hollywood Brown is coming back. He's in full participation in practice this week. Even if he is like limited on Sunday, you still have to put a big-time defensive back on him because he's got unbelievable speed. He's got like Tyreek Hill kind of speed. And if he's on the field, you can't leave him wide open. That's a no-no. The Texans, let me tell you something. The Chiefs laying 3 at home against the Texans. I think they cover no problem. I think the Texans, they have some turnovers in this game. Chiefs win by at least 7 to 10 points. JB, what do you think?
So, as you said, Mahomes is a full participant in practice over the last couple of days, so he's expected to play with that being the case. We see this every year. He gets some sort of nagging injury towards this part of the season. The Chiefs tend to lose a game this part of the year. I think this is the game they lose. Although you're not high on the Texans, I think that they have some really good pieces. The Chiefs tend to toy with their opponents. They haven't really dominated anybody. This was their best performance last week, as compared to what they've done so far this year. But now with Mahomes a little gimpy, I'm looking at the Texans winning this game. I think it's going to create a little bit more drama towards the end of the year. It'll cut their lead to 1 against Buffalo with 2 games to go. I think that they're going to win the other 2 games. They do play on the short turnaround 2 times in a row. They play Saturday this week, and then they play on Christmas Day. So they're going to be careful with Mahomes as well. If something happens, they'll lose him the rest of the game Saturday and then the game on Wednesday. They don't want that to happen. So I see them being very tentative, and they're okay with losing 1 of the 2 games. They can't afford to lose to the Steelers, and they can't afford to lose both games. So it's a tough situation for them right now.
Well, like I said, Carson Wentz is a valuable, backup. He's talented. He knows how to play the game. He's won games, and in spot games he can win a game. And I'm not worried about him coming in if Mahomes can't play.
I don't want Carson Wentz anywhere near my team. I don't want him in my country. I don't want him in my world. Don't like the guy. Don't like his talent. Don't like his head. think he's a quitter. He doesn't belong on the football field. But, if anyone can get anything out of him, it's Andy Reid. But I like the Texans this week. I think this is a game that's set up for Kansas City to lose. I think they're thinking about the Steelers and Christmas. And, I think Mixon actually has a good game this week. I think he's the key because he hasn't had a good game in a couple of weeks. I like Mixon this week, and I think that the Texans stun the Chiefs. But follow up next week, which we'll talk about, I think they beat the Steelers. Speaking of the Steelers, the Saturday night game, the Steelers go to Baltimore. Ravens are a 6-point favorite. The Steelers beat them earlier in the year. This is pretty much the game for the division. Whoever wins this is in the driver's seat because the Steelers lost to Philly. This could be a great game. I don't think the line should be 6 since the Ravens already lost to the Steelers. I don't like the Ravens in this game. I like Mike Tomlin. He does nothing but perform. It is predicated on Pickens playing. He has to be out there because they need their full complement of team in order to, have their best performance. So if he's playing, I think the Steelers win the 2 in a row against Baltimore, and they clinch the division. Ravens are a great team. Lamar Jackson is phenomenal. Derrick Henry, you got to love the pieces that they have. Mark Andrews and, that defense, which is always decent, except the secondary this year is horrible. I don't understand what happened. But, I think when it's all said and done, Pittsburgh's a better team together compared to what Baltimore is. Not that Baltimore is bad. They're just not Pittsburgh. But I do like Pittsburgh taking the points. I don't know if they'll win the game, but if you're going to give me 6 points with a team that beat a team already, and both these teams need to win. So it's not as if, one of them's going to say, it doesn't matter. And of course, Pittsburgh, if they win and Houston happens to win, the number 1 seed's in play for them as well. There'll only be a game back. If they beat Kansas City that following week, they're tied. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of different scenarios that are in the Pittsburgh in play. So I kind of like them in this game with the 6 points. Again, I don't know if they'll win, but I'll take almost a touchdown easily with them.
Well, I got to agree with you on the Steelers because I like the Steelers +6. I think the line is pretty big. Steelers are on a bounce-back situation because of their loss against Philly last week. And the turning point in that game was when they were down 2013 and Najee Harris took the pitch from Wilson and fumbled the ball in the red zone against Philly. Now, they looked like the momentum was there and they were driving. And if they scored a touchdown, it would have been 20 up and it's a different ball game. What happens instead? Philly recovers the ball, goes the other way for a touchdown, and it's 27-13 and it's game over because Pittsburgh only got the ball one more time. And then Philly closed out the game with an almost 11-minute drive, held the ball for almost 11 minutes, which is almost unheard of, and just drove down the field and held the ball, and Pittsburgh never even saw it, and they lost 27-13. So that's got to really hurt. So those guys are going to be looking to bounce back after a loss like that. Second, T.J. Watt, he injured himself in the game against Philly. He says he's going to play. We'll see. He's the X factor. Definitely needs to be on the field for this game. You can't lose to the Ravens. Ravens are looking to beat the Steelers and not, have the Steelers get a sweep against them in the season. The Ravens last week, they beat the Giants. Big deal, 35-14. I actually liked the Giants +16.5. I thought it would be closer. But the Ravens secondary has always been bad. For some reason, the Ravens secondary for the last few years has been bad. And that's one of the things that has been their Achilles heel. And it was an Achilles heel against Kansas City in the playoffs. It's been an Achilles heel against the Raiders earlier this year. And it's amazing that the Raiders beat the Ravens earlier this year at Baltimore. But that's a problem. Now, if you're able to – now, Pittsburgh knows that to stop Baltimore, you got to stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. If you stop those two from running the ball and Lamar Jackson has to sit back in the pocket and really look around, he's not going to be as effective as he is if he, is able to run. Derrick Henry is getting less and less carries towards the end of the season because they want to keep him fresh for the playoffs. And God forbid he gets injured. I can tell you right now, it's going to be hell to pay in Baltimore if they overwork him. So they're giving him less carries right now. He had like 14 carries against the Giants. Lamar Jackson didn't run the ball as much, and Lamar threw for 5 touchdowns. It's going to be a good game. I think it's a 3-point game at best. I like the Steelers with the 6 points, and I also like them to win the game as well. So I'm in agreement with you there, J.B., and, we'll see how it plays out.
All right, this next game is pretty interesting. And, I'll go first on this one. So last week, when Philly had their issues, and they were on I think, 8-game winning streak at the time, there was talk about the passing game and how bad it was, and A.J. Brown was upset that Jalen Hurts wasn't getting the ball. That all changed last week. Jalen Hurts basically shut everybody up. And I don't think there was ever an issue from A.J. Brown. I think it was just the media trying to create a little divisiveness in the locker room. And the Eagles just went on and played a really good game. Brown had, I think, like 14 targets or something ridiculous when I looked at it. Had a great day. Eagles have Barkley, Hurts, Brown, and a bunch of other pieces. Washington, who's having a phenomenal season with Daniels and, the rest of the crew, McLaurin, their defense is playing decent. They're in a fight for the wild card. They're probably going to get it as a wild card. I don't foresee them falling out of that race. But the Eagles now, thanks to the Buffalo win in Detroit, are tied with Detroit now with the best record in football.
Minnesota, too.
And the NFL, the NFC, I mean, at 12-2. And Minnesota, they got the 3 teams going at 12-2. So they can't afford to lose. So they're on a different level. It's not even, besides the fact that they have more talent and they're a better team than Washington, they now also have a purpose. It's not as if, Detroit's still got a 2-game lead on them. It's even now. There's no room for error. And they proved that they're a better team than Washington already once this year, and I think they're going to do it again. I don't even think this game's going to be close. I think Philly's on a purpose right now. They're driven. I
got to tell you, I agree with you with the Eagles. First of all, the Commanders are not as good as people think. Again, they haven't beaten a good team. They lost to the Eagles. They lost to Baltimore. They lose against good teams that are over 500. And last week they had a 17-0 lead at New Orleans, and they blew it. They almost blew the whole game. They were up 17-0. They dropped the pass. They had a missed field goal. A calamity of errors. And Dan Quinn is showing everybody he's not as good a head coach, as he claims to be, because this team should be closing out games. New Orleans had a 3rd-string quarterback out there, okay? They came back. They were up 20-13. They couldn't even hold this lead. New Orleans scores a touchdown and is inches away from getting a 2-point conversion and coming back to win this game. The Commanders, I don't know what they're doing. I really don't know. Jaden Daniels, yes, he's good. He's hopefully going to be here. But again, just remember, look at what happened to Houston. They had a good game. They had a good season with C.J. Stroud. This season, they kind of take a little bit back because tougher schedule. Washington's going to have a hell of a schedule next year, especially if they finish out the season above 500. They are going to, and if they make the playoffs on top of it, their schedule next year is going to be very tough. I kid you not. It's going to be based on strength, and there may be games that you're going to say what happened and what this and that. That's because they're not going to be prepared. They think they're going to ride that wave. The Eagles, you're right, are on another level right now. They're tied right now with Minnesota 12-2. They're tied with Detroit 12-2. Any one of those teams could end up with the number 1 seed. So they all are playing with a purpose. They all are scoreboard watching. They all are watching what the other team is doing. And they have to play almost, I wouldn't have to say perfect football, but they have to just keep winning. Because if one of them loses, they're definitely not going to be the number 1 seed. Somebody's going to come out ahead. And it's got to be a team that's going to keep winning. I think 15-2 is going to be the record that gets the number 1 seed. And whichever team doesn't have it is certainly going to be playing first week of the playoffs. The Eagles, right. They're both sides of the ball. Listen, Barkley's going to run a lot. Commanders can't stop the run. I see this as a possible blowout. The last time these guys met, it was on a Thursday night, and Eagles were playing with them. They won 26-18. Washington scored a dummy touchdown at the end, made it look close. It was actually 26-10. So Yeah, I like the Eagles winning by 2 touchdowns in this game, unless they get smart or, you don't want to rub it in anybody's face. But I see them winning by 2 touchdowns in this game.
All right. Monday Night Football, you could start.
I think this game is Sunday. It's not
Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, it's not on Sunday night, believe it or not. Tampa Bay at Dallas is on Sunday night. But the Vikings, I thought this would be an interesting game because it does have the Vikings, and they are fighting for that number 1 seed as well in the NFC. But I will start out, I'll say Vikings, listen, they toyed with Chicago on Monday night. If you watch that game, they were all over Caleb Williams. They have the number 2 rushing defense in the NFL, the Vikings. That's one thing you don't mess with. You don't try to run on Minnesota. So that leaves you with a quarterback who has no offensive line in Caleb Williams. He's been sacked 58 times this season. He leads the NFL in sacks. I mean, you can't even get comfortable. You can't even see what is going on there when you're under pressure. Considering the fact that Minnesota's number 2 against the rush, and you're playing against a team that has no offensive line, it's a recipe for disaster, and it was. And believe it or not, I'm surprised Minnesota didn't score 50 points on Monday night, and they probably could have, but they just took it easy because it's a division rival. The Seahawks, Geno Smith getting injured, that's got to be one of the worst things to happen for Seattle. They were moving along. They were losing some games, but, week to week, you don't really know what Seattle's going to bring. And they ended up losing last week, which, Sam Howell coming in. Yeah, the reason why Sam Howell is a backup is because he's not that good. And Geno Smith injuring his knee. He's questionable for this Sunday, but he's more doubtful than anything. I think he's not playing this weekend. Also, Kenneth Walker is out, and that's a big part of their running game because he takes a lot of pressure off Geno Smith. Now you got Sam Howell back there with no real running back. You got backups in running back. And you got Minnesota, who's got a purpose again, needs to play. Again, they're tied with Philly. They're tied with Detroit. They need to keep playing and keep on winning. And Sam Darnold is having a career year. So he's going to hit the jackpot after the season, no matter what happens the rest of the way. He's playing very well. I like Minnesota to win by at least 10 or 14 points in this game. They have a purpose. They need to keep playing. Unless they get fumbleitis and turnoveritis in this game, and Seattle just finds a way to win on some lucky bounces, but I don't see that happening because the Vikings are a total team. They're going to shut down the run against Seattle, and Sam Howell's going to be standing back there wondering who to pass, and he's going to see a mad rush on him, and there's going to be turnovers by Seattle, and they can't help it. So I like Vikings here by 10 to 14 points minimum.
So let's go through the scenarios. So if Geno Smith plays, it's going to be about a touchdown game. Vikings win. If Sam Howell plays, it's going to be between 14 to 21 points that the Vikings are going to win by. Now, it's a huge difference. I agree that, having the starting running back out is not going to help them either. Charbonnet is a great backup, but he's a different type of runner as well. So having him in the game all the time, he's good. I like the guy. I like the A and B running back that they have with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. But Charbonnet is not the lead back for a reason. There's a reason it's Kenneth Walker. So with those two things in play, and then you have the Vikings who are playing for the number 1 seed, they basically have to win out in order to get it. They can't go on the road and lose this game. Now, Seattle, on the other hand, is playing for the division. They're a game back on the Rams, and they got destroyed last week. And now, if Geno don't play and you have Walker out, that's a lot to ask of, your backup quarterback who was awful last week. And now to come in and beat a team that only has 2 losses throughout the year and is actually a really good team that no one expected to be this good. Their receiving core with Addison and Jefferson is phenomenal. Then you got an unbelievable tight end. They're just – they brought in Aaron Jones to play running back for the Packers. And what a great move. You know, I understand why the Packers got rid of him because they got Josh Jacobs, but I think Minnesota wanted this deal. And then their defense, like you said, they kill the run. And their pass rush is pretty good too. They're a pretty complete team. I think Seattle's a decent team, but Minnesota, again, it's like the last game we were talking about. They're on a different level than Seattle at the moment, and it's going to show in the score. It's either going to be, a touchdown if Geno plays, or up to 21 points if it's Sam Howell. I don't think there's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a fun game to watch unless you like Minnesota. This isn't Seattle at its strength playing. If they were completely healthy, I still would take Minnesota, probably by about at least 5. But now you got issues at quarterback, issues at running back. It's a tough time for Seattle. They need to win this game. So they're going to play hard, but I don't think they have the horses to keep it close.
I don't think so.
So I got a bonus time question for you.
Okay.
So we all know I'm a Giant fan, and we're battling the Raiders right now for the number 1 pick. So there's a huge game this week. The Raiders against the Jaguars. The Raiders happen to be favored by 1.5. So we need the Raiders to win. Does Jacksonville have a chance in this game?
I think the Raiders win that game. I was looking at that game. Believe it or not, I like the Raiders in the game. Jacksonville has the 32nd rated defense in the NFL. They're terrible. Should have saw that last week against the Jets, but the Jets have their own problems. And that game actually went back and forth. But if you saw part of the game, the Jags defense at the end of the game was invisible. Devontae Adams had a pass. He was wide open, and he ran for 40 yards before anybody even picked him up. So I like the Raiders in that game. They're at home. Jacksonville is basically, wrote it in. And they're not drafting a quarterback, even if they were to get the number 1 pick. Raiders need a quarterback. Drew Lock is actually playing this weekend against Atlanta. And I got to check the spread again because that was news. I liked Atlanta when it was like 10 against Tim Boyle. Then it went down to 8.5. Now it's probably gone down even more. Atlanta's got their own problems. Kirk Cousins is an overrated quarterback. He's average at most, getting overpaid. I mean, the display he put on Monday night against the Raiders was pathetic. I mean, this guy's getting $1 trillion to play. He's a veteran quarterback, and he can barely throw the ball, and he's shell-shocked.
Well, they benched him. They're playing Penix. They announced it last night.
And, it's about time. It's about time. But this might be the last few games that he plays in Atlanta because I thought it was a mistake signing the guy in the first place. He's completely overpaid. He doesn't when he was with Minnesota in 6 seasons, he took them to the playoffs 2 times. Okay. Did he take him to the Super Bowl? No. Did he take him to the conference championship game? No, because he's not a winner. And I don't know who thought or who thinks, and he's this and he's that. He's not. He's an average quarterback, and he's not. He can't take a team anywhere. He's competitive, no problem. There he keeps you in the mix, but he's not a winner, and he's getting paid. And then and the game he played on Monday night, Atlanta was just playing not to lose, and Vegas almost pulled it out at the end, which is pathetic to think that a 2-11 team is going to be the team that's still playing for the playoffs. The Giants got their own problems. They have no offensive line. We all know that. When are they going to address it? I don't know. But no matter who they bring in as quarterback, he's a sitting duck if that offensive line doesn't get going. I like Tyrone Tracy. I think he's a good young back. I think he takes a lot of pressure off any quarterback that comes in there. The defense right now, they're decimated. They have injuries all over the place on defense. They're sitting ducks against Atlanta. If Penix and Atlanta puts together a good game plan, they will tear the Giants apart because there's nobody back there. And that's the problem with the Giants. I'd like to see the Giants get the number 1 pick, but they need other things besides a quarterback. They need other players. They are about 10 players away from actually being good, and that's the problem. They need that offensive line. They need to tear it up and start over because people think you could just insert a guy here, insert a guy there. That's not what the offensive line, how it works. 5 guys have to mesh, and if they don't mesh and they don't all take care of what they need to do it at the same time, it doesn't matter who you have out there. It's not going to work. And just look at Chicago, 58 sacks on Caleb Williams. I mean, that's he he starts the game already lying down. That's the problem.
Yeah.
He's already under pressure. So they need to.
Yeah.
An offensive line is adamant to winning in the NFL, and that's my bonus points for everybody watching.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm rooting for the Raiders to win, obviously, because I want the number 1 pick. I don't have any choice in that game. I'm not making a pick because I'm rooting, and I don't pick when I root because that would be bias, and we don't want biases. But where can people find you?
You can find me at jeffcadillac.com. You can find me here with you every week, and on Twitter at Jeff Cadillac 1. I should start putting more notes up there and analysis than just the best bet of the week. It would be nice if I had some more followers, but hey, listen, folks, if I get more followers, maybe I'll write some more messages. So we'll see what's what. More analysis there. It'd be a little helpful, But hey, I'm doing what I can, and who knows? Maybe you'll see me some other places next season.
So I'm J.B. _ the program on X. You can see the daily dose of J.B. daily, every day. You get a little piece of me. It's pretty cool. It's like a daily conversation with me. It's my wife loves it. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'll keep doing it. Sideline Sports every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm on the South Florida Tribune later tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern. Next week is Christmas on Wednesday, so we will be on before that.
Tuesday,
analyze
probably on Tuesday, folks. So if you're watching right now, put it on your calendar for Tuesday because there's 2 games on Wednesday.
Yeah, we don't know what time yet, but we'll let you know as soon as we know. But besides for that, guys, have a safe week. Get ready for the holidays and enjoy the games.